Excellent. Good. So let's just pop that over there. Hopefully I can see the comments. And maybe not, but maybe yes. There we are. Thank you, Jan. I was going to ask that. It's never quite guaranteed, is it? It's never quite guaranteed. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Goody, goody gumdrops. Good evening, Leslie. Hi, Faith. So let me just move some of this. These are all, I've got out a whole mountain of products today that you really don't see me using very often. So I thought it was time for them to have a little bit of an outing. We're not quite 7 o'clock, so we'll just wait a little bit while people come in. So yeah, I've cast a whole collection of stuff from a Finnabair mould, or several Finnabair moulds. They're still available, but the good news is that I think there's some more moulds coming out from Prima, and sneaky hint, perhaps I shouldn't say it, but actually some Finnabair ones I think will be coming out fairly soon too. And there's certainly a sneaky peek at a Prima mould with butterflies with cogs that I've seen on Prima's social media page, so which makes me think there's probably some more pieces coming out. So the lovely Michelle McCarthy, who has her own company now. Previously she demonstrated for and worked with Crafters Companion, but that when the things went, they changed their processes a few years ago. She ended up losing a job. She's done a little bit of demonstrating for Ciao Bella and been on their design team a couple of times, but has branched out on her own more recently, and is producing a wide range of different paper craft kits. The imagery is beautiful, and has recently invested in a laser printer, which means that she can produce rice papers, and these are, they're relatively, they have got fibres in, but they're relatively fibre free. They're a really nice quality, and I've already tested one because I'm cynical about ink being waterproof, and these, or at least the paler colours I tested it on, didn't budge at all. So now we've got, let me just come back to the start of here and let's just say hello to everyone. So Michelle is watching. She can happily put her website in if she wants to, and also can tell us what she charges for these. Good evening, Connie. Hi, Liz. Thank you, Sarah. Much appreciated for that update. Good evening, Liz. Hello, Angela. Hi, Sheila. Good evening, Sue. Faith, be patient, be patient, be patient, be patient, because the crackle plaster is in the UK. Well, I think it's in the UK. There is a new Pentart, there is a company that is importing a wide range of the Pentart products, but they are not doing their big launch on social media until after Easter, and there will be several companies, I think, stocking everything, because I know and I appreciate at the moment it's actually quite difficult to get hold of the stamp, Pentart materials, but good news is coming. And as I had a sneaky peek, or a little bit of a hand in with what products might or might not be worth getting, I think you're not going to be disappointed. So I'm going to pop this onto an A4 canvas. This is an A4 piece of rice paper printed with a border, and the headache for that is that it means that the imagery is just slightly less than A4, and that's fine because it's all workable, and most people who work with rice papers are good at blending things in. So I'm just adding some water around the edges, and you might not be able to see, but I absolutely can, that actually the water is beading off the printed area, and that tells me that has got a waterproof surface. Now that might cause me a bit of headache in a minute, and I might regret having done this all on the front of the paper. I might have been better off turning it over, but there we are. Let's see if it's sunk in. So I am just going to shred these sides a little bit so it is. And as ever, I'm supporting the piece that I want to be kept safe, and I'm pulling away the piece that I'm happy to come out, and it gives me a really soft feathery background, which will make life, it just makes blending easier. I'm not going to go for complicated blending. Catherine Sturrock does that beautifully. She's managing. I'm not a great artist. My ability to draw is really not great, but I can colour blend and do some pieces. There was definitely a stronger fibre there. Hi Julie. Faith, I'm just not, I've been asked not to say anything about, anything very much about it, but I can't help but just dropping the clue. So that is fluffed up. You can see how nicely fluffed that edge is. I might have been better off popping that onto the back, but it is shredding nicely. Shredding not being the term you want for most pieces of paper, but on this occasion it's going to work really well. And I need a bit more water. I can feel that it's really resisting, and if it's a real problem, what I'm going to do is I'll just come along the back of here, and hopefully that will help soften that bit off a little bit better for me and make it easier. You see, just popping that onto the back just means that I can shred this, pull this off. And I don't always water cut, to be fair. If I'm putting it onto a straight edge, and I'm not worried about blending it in because it's going to be on a straight edge, then I take a good old-fashioned pair of scissors and just chop the white border off. Thank you, Angela. This is the first time I've worked, well, it's not, I have had a bit of a play. I wouldn't go live without having had a bit of a play with any company's product. I have to be happy with them, but I do think it's really important that we support some of the smaller companies, because without the smaller companies, the bigger ones don't develop. They all have to start somewhere, and also I think it's going to get to be very, very expensive, if we're not very careful importing stuff, particularly in from the US, because if it's been made for the US and they've had to import it from China, as an awful lot of craft products are made out in China, and then it's shipped into us, and then it has another more tariff coming into the country than we already subject it to, then we're just going to have things are going to be phenomenally expensive, and actually it's going to be far better for us to to make for us, to make within the UK. So and I think that's the joy, and it means also for me, it encourages me to maybe work outside my comfort zone and to pick things that I wouldn't necessarily use things that I might not otherwise do. So there we are. We have managed to scrumple that very nicely but we've taken out the edge, and you can see that by the time I've taken that off, I'm now quite a lot short of my A4 canvas. Good evening, Deborah. Welcome, welcome. But that actually does not matter one little bit. I am using Pentart decoupage varnish and glue, that being my preferred choice. And I'm just going to give myself a good coat on the top half of here. I'm using the matte version. I could just as easily be using the silky shine version, but the matte one is the one that's needing to use up, and so that's what I'm using. But choose the one that's going to work for your style of crafting. You might prefer to have a shiny surface. I tend to work matte because I can add shine with varnish later on if I want to. Not that I can't actually take that off. Is that reasonably centralising? That will do. So, here we are. So, I'm going to pop this onto here. I'm going to pop from the centre out. This will really test whether just how good this printing is of these rice papers and how colour fast these are, particularly as we've got such dark colours, and I've got a nice white edge on here, so you know, so it'll become really obvious if there's any colour bleeding whatsoever. Yeah, yes, you can print out rice paper for yourself from digital images. If you print it on an HP printer, however, the ink remains water reactive and it'll smudge if you're not very careful, which is why I think if you can, you know, if you've got a laser printer and can get professionally printed laser rice papers, it's just saves a whole lot of heartache. Make tonight isn't complicated, but at all. But I just wanted you to go back to almost some basics, but also just use a whole collection of products that you may not have seen me use for a while. The other ones I do use, but that maybe not very often. So let's just lift this up. I'm starting from the middle and I can pop that down. There we are. Pop that there. And you are better off having a reasonable amount. Don't think, oh, I'm not sure, I just want a little bit of varnish on my brush in case it moves. Actually, you are much more likely to damage your surface of your rice paper if you've got a brush that is not reasonably loaded. If it's reasonably loaded, it slides over, whereas if you are working with something that is completely almost dry, then actually you're more likely to pick and pull at the fibres of your piece. So don't be scared. Professional rice paper shouldn't bleed. Shouldn't being the operative word, because I haven't known at least one company send out a batch that was just had to go back because they had got it complete. They hadn't printed it properly. But there we are. It doesn't happen very often. And if you do get rice paper that bleeds, then I would challenge the company. So there we are, we've got that down and I can pop that into there. Good evening, Lorraine. Hello, Kim. I would be grateful if people could tag people in, because Facebook decided, for reasons best known to Facebook, because of course Facebook does its own thing entirely, that I could only invite 50 people. Really helpful. Not. Anyway, it is what it is. So I don't wish anyone to be offended if they didn't get an invitation. It's not through intent, so I just clicked on the first 50 that I was allowed to invite, and then it told me I couldn't invite any more. Normally I can invite masses of people, but you know, there we are. So Sarah's in and watching, my darling. How are you feeling now? Have you recovered from your fall, and are you otherwise feeling a bit better? So the decoupage varnish glue and matte goes on milky and will dry clear with a matte surface, which is fine. I just need to get this so I can add something, because I've clearly got a gap around here that now needs to be filled in, and I need this to be dry before I can pick it up. So Lorraine, we have rain forecast for the weekend in the UK too, but it is coming up from Europe. So I think it's going to be like that. I think it is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I'm not expecting a vast number of people online tonight. I think there's quite a few people on holiday, which also, you know, and all looking after children, so maybe having less time to watch lives as they go out, but hopefully they'll catch on rewind, and I will upload this eventually to my YouTube channel, which is at Gillian Humphrey 2212. So if you don't already subscribe, please pop over and have a little look and hit the subscribe button, and you'll know when I have posted another live from there. My intention currently is not to go live directly onto YouTube, but to use it to preserve the lives long term. And my rationale is that actually I prefer the interactivity and the ease of chat on Facebook. I haven't got a clue what this text says. It's all squiggly letters and things, but I rather like it. And it's going to form almost a frame to my piece. Let me just get this dry. It's still a bit wet in the middle, and then I can start. I will add some. Ooh, well, that wasn't intelligent, woman. That really wasn't intelligent. Right, he says. The cracks on the paper are black with coloured stuff on top. Oh, that's the effect we're going to mimic. Right, but that requires me to put a black underbase. There's going to be lots of black tonight. It won't end up as a black project long term. I promise you. Is that the open one? No, that is not the open one. Let's see if that one is an open one. Yes, that one is an open one. There we are. Let's grab the open pot. Oh, there we are. And a nice-ish brush. There we are. And I know this says it's magnetic. It is magnetic. If you put it on one way, then the other. I'm not using it as magnetic. I'm just going to use it as primer paste. So we're just going to paint the edge of this all in, and I'm not going to worry about coming a little bit onto the frame, the picture itself, because that's how I'm ultimately going to blend it in. I don't want a thick layer, but you know, there's only so many ways you can. The finger is very good for blending into rice paper edges because it softens it down. There we are. And it'll give me an irregular border, and that's fine. That's the intention, and then I can add colour on top when I've done a couple more steps. Hey ho. There we are. And the key for here is not to have a straight edge, because the art of successful decoupage is to disguise where the edges are. There we are. So we'll just and you can do that with texture, with stenciling, by having an irregular edge. I can see it. without a problem. Only all the news so missed the reels I had to watch back. It's glorious. I have to say that I am, no, I think I am allowed to say this actually. I have 85% of the collection in the house, and I'll let you work out why I might have 85% of the collection in the house, but I do, with the remaining 15% due to be sent out as soon as it arrives in the country. I do know why everything's on a bit of a delayed dispatch from Steampunkmoth, but I'm not going to share that because it wouldn't be right. But it is absolutely, the colour palette is definitely lovely. I mean, I am definitely someone who likes blues. There's no problem about that from that point of view, but it is absolutely, if you like sea themes, it's lovely. No need to apologise, Deborah. So the rice paper is from Michelle McCarthy Crafts. She has she's producing a lot of collections, approximately one a month, I think, possibly a bit more. I might be unfair. She's online. She can actually tell you herself that. But she, I know she's currently got a really bad back, so is somewhat not able to do as much as she would like, but she, there we are, let's just cover all of that, wriggle that into there. There we are, let's just add a little bit of texture into there, smooth that out just a little bit. So I've now got that onto there, and the two areas, you know, merging into each other. And this is always when we have a bit of the world's nightmare, isn't it, with when I'm doing things. So let's do it differently, otherwise, because with the numbers of steps, if I carry on and do all of the black primering that I need to do, actually we won't get to the next step of the crackle before they're ready. So let's just give this a little bit brush dry. Good evening, Isabel, thank you for joining us. Hello Joan, welcome my darling, welcome. Let's just partially lid that piece. So on what other pieces of news have I got for everyone? My regular Facebook lives for Pentart that I thought weren't starting back until after Easter, my bad, totally my bad, are actually starting back next Tuesday, and then they're going to be weekly from there on out. So we can go back to watching those. They'll be 6 o'clock UK time. Yeah, every Tuesday evening for Pentart, and there will always be Pentart mediums there because it's for Pentart, and it will almost always have Steampunkmoth products in it because they distribute Steampunkmoth products. But for now, this is from Michelle. I've got some other plans with some more rice papers from her, so I might eventually do another one of those as a live. I thought maybe some basic decoupaging tutorials might be helpful. So I thought it would just start with a really simple and an easy way of layering things together and disguising our edges. Now, if you don't get rid of black off your fingers, all that will happen, of course, is that you'll have black on everything else you touch. So one of the products that you do not see me use very often, because I'm generally not a gothic and dark person, but I really like this about these papers. There's also an incredible one with a crow on a book of secrets, is the black cracking paste. Very different to the cracking plaster. So it comes with its own primer, but actually the universal primer will work just as well. So hence the smaller pot of the universal. all primer. Let's get that lid off there. There we are. And this goes on white, but it will not stay white. So let's just pop this onto here. Don't need a thick layer. There we are. Let's just go round the edge of the canvas. And then we'll come around and pick up, thin out the rest of it, because we don't need to be here till midnight with primer paste drying. So this is a product that goes on white and will dry clear, and it just provides a resist area so that and if it ends up where this goes will be shiny. So if at the end of the make I haven't covered it all, then actually what I will do is then I can add a gloss varnish over, or a matte varnish over the back over to even out the colour. So I'm just deliberately doing this so that I can bring my own crackle onto the edges of the paper, and I'm deliberately going to take them all the way around and not try to draw a flower, because that's beyond me. And you'll notice again I am not keeping to an even straight edge, because it will all help to disguise things. There we are. Cool. So that can go on there. That is, let's just take off some of the excess from there. It's not going to take a silly amount of time to dry, I think, in this weather. There we are. Good evening, Betty. I think you haven't watched me before. So I'm Jill. I'm very deaf. Well, I cross the boundaries, to be fair. I do lots of mixed media stuff. I love the decoupage. I love rice papers. I also do quite a lot of paper crafting. My introduction to crafting really my introduction to crafting was needlework with my mother as a child. She taught needlework, so I learnt to sew at a very early age because I didn't have any choice in the matter. And then paper crafting when my children came along, making scrapbook pages. So there we are. That's where my background is. So as I say, these are cast in, these are amazing casting resin. They could just as easily be the Pentart rapid resin or any other fast curing resin that you happen to have. The fast cure resins tend to be white or cream coloured. There is a black version which means that you don't have to do the step that I'm doing. The clear ones often take a lot longer. And now we have the tedious bit, but actually essential bit of, because I want a black base, because that's going to work in with the rice paper and the concept of a Gothic vibe that my brain has. I'm going to, we'll always miss bits because that's just what happens when you're painting with black, but you do definitely need to get every last bit of it covered. So we will just, and I'll end up in a mucky mess, because that's also always, that's just the rule of crafting according to Jill. When she's got black out, she'll end up in a mucky mess. Yeah, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? So there we are. But that's just, again, it's just part of life. So think of rice papers as are suitable for home decorations, because they're thin. They almost bond into the surface that you put them onto. So you could pop them onto photo frames. You can pop them onto old mirrors, onto trays, onto glassware, onto furniture that you want to upcycle. Lots of different things. So they're very, very practical, and because they're thin and flexible, they meld into contours and surfaces, unlike an ordinary piece of paper that tends to sit on the surface. So that's why I like them. I don't tend to do any major furniture upcycling, but I definitely do like decorating boxes, glassware, and yeah, and doing sort of canvassy type projects with them. But the world is your oyster once you've done that. There are some beautiful decoupaged Easter eggs around on social media at the moment, predominantly from some of our European colleagues rather than from girls in UK girls, but they are beautiful, and they'll carry on for a little bit with the Easter projects, because the Greek Orthodox Church celebrates Easter a slightly different time to us. And as ever, whenever you do something in black, it's not until the flipping thing's dried that you then see what's going on. Not going to happen, Sarah. Not going to happen. I have to say that I'm not much into card make. I do some, but when I do them, they'll be multi-layered, and the techniques that you see me use for everything else will absolutely appear. Occasionally, as you know, I will occasionally make a card, but it's definitely not my main thing. Good evening, Chris. Welcome, my darling. There's more people watching. Maybe people have come in. See, I tell you, I'm going to end up with black hands, aren't I? Absolutely going to end up with black hands. So there is only one way this is going tonight, and that is covered in black. Hey ho. So there we are. Hey. So is everyone otherwise okay? Have the children locally to you broken up? I don't think ours have. Easter is so late this year, but I have a feeling that they're not breaking up until next week, or that might be that they're breaking up this week. I know some, yeah, our kids were definitely still out. We've still at school. I think although I think North Manchester itself is not. Oh, totally mucky paws. Totally mucky moors. If you know, I mean, if you don't know my working by now, will know that I always end up with mucky paws, and I've got black, you know, so it's obvious everywhere, isn't it? Always going to be obvious everywhere. Good evening, Caroline. There we are. So we'll just. It's inevitable. It's inevitable that I'm going to end up with mucky paws when I've got a pot of blade and a whole mountain of resins to cover. It's one of the reasons why you don't see me doing lots of stuff online with a very, very black base. But I just thought it would be good to do something that you haven't seen me, you know, technique and styles and products that I haven't used for a goodly while. And these pastes are all water based, and none of them will take a silly amount of time to dry, which is good. I am making a mixed media decoupaged piece with lots of resin embellishments. I'm not going to call it assemblage, because that's when Finnabair does it, she has all sorts of everything. I'm keeping it definitely to just moulds rather than adding cogs, gears and found objects. I can't get my head around that. But each to their own, and you develop a style that works for you. I also find if you try adding like things like paper flowers, then by the time I've black gessoed every last bit of it, they're falling apart. So it's not my go-to, shall we say. So we're doing all sorts of things. I think, you know, in America they don't have a break, do they? Have spring break, but a break for Easter, but it'll be Easter Sunday, possibly Easter Monday, and then they're back. They tend not to have the prolonged breaks that we have over here spread through the year. They tend to have a bigger or a longer summer holiday than we do. Possibly weather related, I don't know. Anyway, there we are. Good. Now, how much of that we'll have missed, we will find out when we dry. Let's retrieve from underneath. You see, I can already see on that camera shot a bit there. Oh, there we are. Because the white will offend me long term. Thinning the bit down does help because it pushes it into the nooks and the crannies. There we are. We might call it done in a minute. Okay, reasonable. Let's lid that, and actually I'm going to give it a little spray. It hasn't been opened for a while, and it's meant to be thick, but if I don't open it for another 6 months, which is possible, it might not get opened from now until nearer Halloween, then it's better, I think, to do that. So let's just give our hands a jolly good wipe and get rid of the yuck. And then we can give this a bit of a dry. There's nothing worse than watching a create with filthy hands. Don't expect the hands to be perfect. It's just not going to happen, is it? Just not going to happen. There we are. I'm surprised at Southern Ireland, but mind you, you see the guy, you know, it depends on the holidays, doesn't it, and the farming and stuff and needs of the families. Let me just give this all a goodly blast, because they won't, I promise you, they're not going to be staying completely black long term, but the next steps definitely require me to have these dry. And the other thing that I tend to do is I will prefer to have my pieces painted before I assemble them, unlike the lovely Finnabair, who puts everything in place on her piece of work and then adds the colour, and I go petrified that it's all going to end up in the wrong place. So this is the beautiful rice paper. Let me just pop that over here a little bit, but I just now need to get this dry all the way around. You can see where the primer paste is still white. I know from past experience that on the lives it quite often looks white clear before on camera before it's actually dry, which is always a bit of a pain, and I don't want to cook it and bubble it, which I have just done, but there we are. Let's just give this a little bit of a waft all the way around. And of course, if I wasn't on the live, I would literally just leave this, walk away, and let it all dry on its own naturally. There we are. That's movable. That's movable. That's movable. Shovel those out the way, and then we can get component 2 out in a minute and come back to this one. There we are. As I say, do if you're not on a live, let it all go completely before you do the next step. I don't need that out. I don't need that out. So let's just clear some of the pickle. Let's just hope this primer paste is still in a usable condition, because it's not completely guaranteed in my world. So this is the primer paste. You can see just how thick it is. I won't tempt fate by holding it up over my canvas, and I am literally just going to pop it onto my piece, covering all of the shiny level areas, so you can see where you've put your text, where you've put your primer, because it is, as I say, shiny. There we go. And this will always be a bit of a fiddle, won't it, because I'm going round an edge surface. There we are. Don't want thick globs. The size of the crackles for this particular product will vary according to how thick you put your product on. So the thicker you put it on, the wider apart, and the more and the thicker, wider apart, but the deeper your cracks will be, if that makes any sort of sense whatsoever. And you can heat dry it. That will work perfectly well too. There we are. Let me just come around here. So that's always good. As I say, you can see this will dry matte, so you can see where the primer is, because the primer is shiny, which is quite helpful. There we are. So let's just spin this round and continue. And clearly the black is going on as an uneven frame, and but I have some plans to add some different products to add some colour onto here. There we are. So that it doesn't all end up with a black edge. If you like just the black edge and the wriggly outline, then you go with that with pleasure. I've got a whole collection of products, as I say, that I don't use that often, but I just thought would be good to revisit. Okay. So, and I'm doing this up in the air because I can keep my mitts out of it, but it does make it mean it's a little bit more of a headache. It's a beautiful image, Caroline, absolutely beautiful image, and I would say that there is a companion piece which I've left in the other room that is equally nice. I might go and grab it in a minute, right, because I can do. The collection of rice papers from Michelle is very, very eclectic, I think is the honest. Yeah, there's a wide range of different styles, so hopefully she's catering for, you know, everyone's needs and likes. So I think it's almost impossible to predict what someone will want and what someone won't like. But there we are. So let's just do that, and I think I've probably then got everything off around there. So let me just pop that over there, keep my little mitts out of it, and lid this, because then we can go, that can go in there, that can go over there, and then we can grab this lot. Oh yes, right, so put what you need on top of what you want on top of everything else that you need. Really, you know, sometimes if you had a brain, you would be dangerous. So I'm just moving stuff so I can plonk that onto something, and but still have what I want. And whilst that's there, let me just go and grab the other. Hang on a minute, and I will answer that question for you. I will answer that question. So these are from Michelle McCarthy Crafts. Okay, Cookie, as is that one. So this is the companion in terms of colour mix, and I love it. And it might get very simply treated. Watch this space. So gothically styled, Halloweeny, dark, and then at the complete opposite extreme, look at the colours in that. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. We have another bright, very modern, I think, possibly. Quite like it. In fact, I like it quite a lot. It's not about where I like it. I need to have a think about what I'm going to do with that one. And this one, which might work for Easter, possibly, might not do. So they are beautiful, beautiful imagery, and she's got lots more. So I would encourage you to have a little look if you like rice papers and see what she's got. She's in the UK, so from that point of view, she has some help with the designing, I think, or the computer wizardry required for some of the things that she does. There we are. I don't know if Ben is her husband or if Ben is her son. So I won't put my foot in it by saying one or the other, because I'll get it wrong, almost guaranteed. So let's just give these a little bit of a dry, because where I added the water to that one, it's still a bit wet. There we are. Won't matter too terribly much. Right, so I now want these to vaguely mix in with what I've got, and I'm actually just going to go and grab, because look, the more I look at it, the more I want another colour to add in to. There we are. So again, mixture products that again you don't see me using very often, okay, are the metallic paints from Pentart. But I've got a collection of metallic paints out, and I want that to be bluey green and those to be pinky purple. That can be pink, that could be bluey green. So let's just split these up a little bit. There we are, and then we can go from there. And we're going to colour mix on our pieces anyway, as I normally do. So let's just grab and make a mess, because making a mess is cool, isn't it? Of course it's making a mess is cool. Ooh. Right, so this is a metallic paint and it is called Ivy Green, and it's a bit green for the blue that's on the paper, so let's just pop some of that down there. I know, make a mess, why not? Lid that, pop that over there, and I have cobalt blue, and these have an absolute beautiful sparkle. So I'm rather hoping that those will merge into a reasonable mix. So we're going to have some bits that are green, we'll just smizzle it in together. And this is the metallics is why I have I used the black underbase, because the metallics just work so much better when they are on a black base. They shine better. So you generally will only see me using that black base if I am going to get out the metallics. But by mixing these two together, I've got something I think that will act as a contrast, but still be tonally correct for the whole project. And might not have gone around all the edges, that's also just fine. So let's just pop these into here. and give these, we don't need precise painting today, which is always good, isn't it? I've got some waxes that we can add our details into. Anyway, there we are. So there we are. They're quite like. Right, so that was very quick, wasn't it? Not my usual take forever to paint each piece in separately. So for the others, because I can't now, can I move those? Yeah, I can move those. So let's just shuffle those out of the way, give that a bit of a clean. So they're pretty colours. Yeah, it's gonna work nicely. There we are. Let's just clear that mess. Shuffle that in there. So we've got. I looked at my metallics and went, I don't have a magenta. I just don't have a magenta. That will be corrected at some point, because I'm sure there will be one in the line. But I did have violet. I've got some red, so that will soften that down a bit. And I have some pink that heavens only knows when this one got last opened, because I haven't got a clue. Probably 5 years ago. Because yeah, I have really been working with Pentart for that length of time. So there we are. So we've got a hodgepodge of different metallic colours there. So picking out the pinky purple colours that are also in that background. Yeah, let's dump that one into there. That can go into there. That can go into there. Let's keep the mess to something that's vaguely containable this evening. She says, don't want that. Find a brush that I like the look of. That might be easier said than done. Well, there you are. Okie dokie. So let's just go with this. Yeah, quite like it when it's mixed together. That's softening that quite nicely. Some of that black might have still been a bit wet. Not sure I'm liking the pink, so there we are. We'll maybe get rid of the pink. It's all about balance and play, isn't it? There we are. So we'll just do this, and it won't take forever this way. There we are. That's better. That's not quite the same colour as in the paper, but it's within a family of colours, so that will work for me. There we are. And we're going to add some extra with some waxes anyway. So you see, yeah. There we are. So very quick. And I didn't need the pale pink. I often don't like pink. I didn't go for pinks because, well, you know, I don't know why I thought I might want the pink, really, because I never use it. I just never, I'm not a pink girl. I'm not a pink girl. Let's just pop this lot into here, out of harm's way, and we can give all of this little lot a bit of a blast dry. Most of you will never have seen me make something quite so quickly in terms of painting that number of resins in my life. But I have. it will work. I've got masses of other products out here to go through. Right, let's just clear this undoubted mess. It is a silicone mat. It will eventually all peel off, but let's just give that, pour this lot into here, give these a bit of a blast, and then we can blast the canvas, and you can see it crackle, because it's not crackling at the moment. There we are. So we've got two different things, nice contrast between these. I think it's going to work quite nicely. Now, one of the things that happens with metallic paints is that they quite often feel sticky for quite a lot longer than other things. So let's just pop these out of harm's way, move that around. It'll give me just a bit more space for doing things. Yeah. Can go over there. They can go over there. They're not quite dry, but they're not unreasonably dry. And of course, the black's going to crackle with black. Really? Yeah. Because I put black underneath it, so we were going to have some magic pokery to get these to show through. So let me just lift this up now and give the crackle paste that I put on here a good dry. And I don't know how well you'll see that it's cracking. I can see that it's cracking, but black on black's not smart, is it? There we are. But you will see it shortly. I can assure you. There we are. Thank you. I'm not afraid to mix things up, that's for sure. I can see an area where I've put paste where I haven't got the primer, and that's fine. Well, it won't mix up, because without the primer it won't crackle. But the primer also helps to keep it in place. So I need to dry this because I want to add some colour onto the top of it. And we might be getting out those paints that I threw in again in a minute, but hey ho, we might not. We'll see. I lift that up whilst carrying on heating. Can you see that it's crackled? I think not as well as I might like, but you will see it. Honestly, you will. Let's just put that on super speedy. So this is just the cracking paste, the white cracking paste, and it gives a very angular crack, unlike the plaster, which is more feathered. If that makes sense. Get that corner dry. Most crackles you can't do this with them because they really won't tolerate it. Okay, so, let's turn it round the right way. There we are. Ooh, no, we're still a bit wet. we are still a bit wet on some of those edges. Let me just blast those over. So I think in some areas you can definitely see where it has crackled, more where it's over the papers. Okay, so we're going to add some colour. It will be subtle, and these do not show up well on camera. I apologise, but they just don't. So these are the iridescent glaze paste, and I've picked the blue and I've picked the purple. Yeah, the purple. Okay, and you look at those and you think, have you lost the plot, woman? Because those look white. And I can assure you, I haven't quite lost the plot. Okay. So let's just take some of that. It's a paste. Hi Blanche. Good evening. There we are. So let's just take some of that. Let's move the purple one over there. And put that over there. And essentially what I want to do is swipe this over. So I'm literally just swiping it. Now the problem, as I say, this does not, I think it's really difficult to show off on camera. I've tried it on many occasions and it's really not the most camera happy product in the world. But it will dry and it will give it a sheen. And if I don't like it, I'll just take the paints out, because I can do that. Yeah, see, I can see that when I move that, I've got that. So that is the blue. And this is the purple. And so I've had these since they launched, which will be 2 Christmases ago. And they really don't get much of an outing. Because by swiping it out, she says, the crackles will stay black with a bit of luck. And the shimmer will sit on the top. Well, that's the plan. But it's just going to add some texture onto the piece. And more importantly, some colour. So I think this one is definitely getting to the point of needing to go almost in a bin. It's too thick. And on a white surface, on a pale surface, it will stay. Stays white, and it's a really subtle look. And on a dark surface, and see, I've missed a bit there. So let's just shove a bit onto there. It will ultimately dry shiny, so but with a subtle sheen of the colour that I've added. So let me just, but it will always be subtle unless you put great thick there, so when it tends not to be quite so subtle. And as I say, if I don't like it, all I will do is add some paint. Because that's what you can do, isn't it? When you're making, if you don't like something, you just adapt it. There we are. Let me just get some of this dry. Yeah, I can definitely see shimmer. It's a product that is nigh on impossible, I think, on camera, but very pretty in real life. Let's just move some of these out of the way. I don't think I've whizzed my camera out of the way and didn't cause myself no end of mischief. We have a shimmer. And to show it, we need the rest of it to be dry. So whilst that is there, that can sit there because we're going to then add some details. So I'm going to pop this, and I'm deliberately going to go asymmetric. No problem, Michelle. We can't do everything, can we, in this world? It's just not possible to do that. So this is a green base from there, and I've got these. And when I pop these up against the purples in there, so that's why I've chosen what I've done. So this is a magenta. And it's just going to, it will just add a subtlety to these, and I don't know how well you'll see it. I mean, I could slather it on in great big thick globs, but that's not what I want to do. It's just bringing into this frame some of the purple that's in that background, or this magenta-y pinky red colour. There we are. It's definitely a bling project, is this one. And it's only going to pick up the surface detail, so there we are. So I want to pop that onto there. Let me just add some of this. Is the purple lilac. Yeah, you see that's going to add. That's going to be more in my face, isn't it? But maybe that. Yeah. Oh look, it's definitely adding more than the magenta has to it. There we are. So that can go onto there. She's look at the state of. Oh, it's lovely when they're that age, isn't it? It really is lovely. Yeah, so I can think so from there. Now then, that's essentially going to be hidden. So let's start building this composition. And I'm going to use my matte medium. So this is a thick paste, and as I've said in previous slides, will dry white. Okay. So you don't want to be splurging it out the sides. The glossy, if it splurges out the sides, will dry clear but shiny. So I don't like that splurging out the sides either. Okay. So let's just pop that up onto there. As I say, I'm deliberately going asymmetric. That was the whole plan. There we are. And that is going to sit on there. And the reason I'm popping that on there is I'm wanting to put my nice big butterfly onto there. So let me add just some of that purple onto there, so it's going to show through. There we are. Now I could have gone for the green. Let me grab, because we can, and because I didn't, because I wasn't sure that that's what I wanted to do. There we are, we have green gold. And I've lost the light. So there we are, let's just take some of this greeny gold, not most of it off. It's just going to pop that onto our bug. There we are. And that is going to go on there. Okay. Yuck. Icky, icky, sticky, icky, micky hands. So we're going to go one. So that's going to have the green onto there. and that will have the purple onto that, and that can have some green, and that can have some purple. There we are. I'm going to pop that there and there, and that one can go there. Maybe I didn't have that one there. We will work out what we had. There we are. That's better. That's what we had. So we're going to pop that onto there, and that into there, and that little one can go there. And then I'm going to struggle a little because I can't remember exactly which way I had these, but hey ho. So let's add a little bit of green onto here, or a lot of green onto there, as the case may be. That's not going to stay there. There we are. We're going to pop that over there. And that one can go over there. And then I just need to think about what I want to do, or whether I actually do want to do it or not, as the case may be, because I like things to be in balance. So let's just pop the green. Well, it's a fact, you know, at that age they're fascinated by everything, aren't they? Yeah, really fascinated by everything. So I think he's going to get a bit lost there, but that's where I'm going to pop him. So let's just take a little bit of this, pop that there, a little bit of that, and pop that there, so it's nicely, so it's balanced is the intention. Oh, she says, there we are. It's balancing on there quite nicely. Might quite like it to sit up a little bit higher than that. And that one then needs, well, that wasn't intelligent, was it? Of course it wasn't intelligent. That needs the green. There we are. Let's just pop that up there. We're going to pop our third one up. Yeah. So, actually, I think we might do that, or we think that will be better. So there we are. So we're going to have 3 bugs because we can, and because why wouldn't you have 3 bugs? There we are. That can go there, that can go there, that can go there and there. So I'm sort of snaking these across the make, and I very rarely have orphan pieces. Like yeah, this is an orphan piece because it's got nothing, it's not connected to the main piece, but actually for me today it's going to work, it's going to link everything together. There we are. And I just need to work out whether I want this one in. Oh, I know where I had this one. I popped that straight on the top of there. Okay. So if I lift this up, I can see beautifully that I've got blue gold shimmer, blue purple shimmer at the edges, around the edges. So I've got some areas that are drying a little bit. I've got my composition, and I thought yeah, you see, there you are, there's the blue gold shimmer appearing. So let me just lid some of this lot before we end up in a pickle. I like my pieces to have a word associated with them. This is definitely all about the shimmer, it's all about the shine. It's not so obvious on here. Dare and the world always. So I've got some words, I've got lots of these. Dare and the world always yields. If it beats you, sometimes dare it again and again, and it will succumb. Only those who have the patience to do simple things perfectly ever acquire the skill to do difficult things easily. Do we like? Oh, I think we do like that one. So let's just chop this up. Only those. Let's see. Only those who have the patience to do simple things, she says, having got that at a funny angle. Let's just tuck that underneath, anchor it. Let's hope that we can get it straight, because that would be good, wouldn't it? Of course it would be good. Of course it would be good. These might need re-gluing down afterwards as well. To do simple things. We're going to pop perfectly. Let's get rid of that hair, or maybe not. Perfectly. Get it straight. There we are. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Ever acquire the skill there we are, the skill, ever acquire the skill to do difficult things easily. There we are. And those two pieces are now no longer orphaned. Okay, so only those who have the patience to do simple things perfectly ever acquire the skill to do difficult things easily. How very true is that? Okay, so there is our make for tonight, ladies. I hope that you are all okay, that you've enjoyed it. It's not quite the mammoth that it might have been. My plan is to be live on Sunday on my own page at 3 o'clock, and I've got about 5 different projects I've got in my head at the moment, so I will photograph this at some stage, and will let me move that up a little bit, and then once it's properly dry and I get some nice light, hopefully in the morning, and then I will upload the video to YouTube, and I'll post the pictures and the link to the YouTube video, so that when Facebook deletes in 30 days time, it's still there and accessible for everyone. So I'm glad that you've joined me. Please remember to just bob over and have a look at what Michelle's been doing. I know she's got a new kit due out fairly soon. Otherwise, I will see you live on Sunday. So take care for now. Bye.